Hi everyone, good to see you on my channel today. Today I will tell you a wonderful story. It is full of love and kindness. I hope you enjoy it and I wish you an enjoyable viewing experience. Thank you.
Today, Catherine and her friends decided to take a proper walk. From the orphanage, they climbed out a hole in the fence. Some bars were missing. Immediately went to the store, bought there what they needed, and then headed towards the abandoned construction site. The girls looked as if they had put on their best at once. They were wearing brightly colored blouses, skirts, and provocative makeup. If they were out on the road now, they might not be mistaken for ordinary girls, but for completely different girls. "Well, shall we stop here?" one of the friends asked Catherine. "No, let's go further. In case someone comes, they will notice," she said in response. "Okay, if you want, let's go further." No one was not against it. They went to an unfinished house, climbed up one flight of stairs and settled down there. The girls gathered here often. First of all, the place was convenient. Secondly, if there was bad weather outside, rain or snow, they had nothing to fear. And thirdly, it was hard to find them there. Today, they took a bottle of some obscure alcohol and planned to drink it. Having unscrewed the cork, Catherine tasted it straight from the neck. "Ah, strong," she said. "Well, let me try," asked her friend. And so, the bottle went for a walk around the circle. When it was over, the happy girls left the construction site. Now it was possible to walk around a bit and then go back to the orphanage. They had no sooner left the construction site when the guys came up to them. "Hi," one of them said hello. It was obvious that he was well dressed, but he behaved very disgustingly. "What do you want?" Catherine asked him. "Do you have a cigarette?" He answered her cheekily. Pissed off, the girls wanted to pass by, but the guys did not let them. "What are you doing?" Catherine looked at these majors and thought how she hates them. "Come on, don't you dare," grabbed her by the arm of the one who started the whole conversation. "What if I do?" She wasn't timid. "Then I will," he smirked. "Let go," Catherine snatched her hand from him. "All right, live," he laughed. "We'll see who will have the last laugh," muttered the girl. They went on down the road, but the boys caught up with them again. "Well, girls, let's do it normally. Where did you go? Maybe we can go for a walk together," said the same young man. "You don't even have a cigarette, and you said we'll go out together. What should we do together?" Katerina was impertinent. "Let's go buy," said the guy to her. "Why, couldn't you buy before?" She turned to her friends and rolled her eyes, showing that she had nothing to do with this young man. Okay, peace." The guy stopped them. "Okay, I already told you." The girl couldn't move on from the previous conversation. "I'm John and this is Jacob." He introduced himself and his friend. "I'm Catherine. This is Betty. This is Katie. So what?" The girl looked at him. "Nothing, I told you. Let's go out and buy something. We have money," John told her. "If you have money, why did you buy it before?" She couldn't understand. "I can't. Everyone knows me. My mothers will tell." He was ashamed, but he confessed. "Ha ha ha, mama's boy," laughed at him girl, but she shook her head at her friends to follow her, and she walked with him next to him. Catherine realized that this is a tidbit, and at any rate he has money. They approached the stalls that stood in the center. The girl took money from John and quietly bought beer and cigarettes. It was no big deal. She walked over to them. "Well, for you, yes, when no one knows. But when the mother of the deputy head of the administration, then do not go to your grandmother. In the evening everything will be known at home," John said. "Wow, what position your mother holds," whistled Catherine. John looked at her with admiration. He liked such daring girls who were not afraid of anything and could always answer for themselves. To date, his friend was entertaining the other two girls, and he was only with her. "Will you go out tomorrow?" He asked her when it was time for them to leave. "I do not know how it will turn out," laughed Catherine, because every time they had to run away somehow. No one would just let them go. "Well, if it works out, let's meet there," John told her. Okay, not that she liked him, she just really didn't want to lose such a tidbit. When the girls got home, they still lay whispering in their room for a long time about what had happened to them today. The next day they met up with the guys again, and then when a few days had passed, Catherine was already running alone to John. "Hi, what took you so long? I'm already freezing here," he was telling her, standing around the corner of the building. "It's easy for you to say, but I can't leave so easily. Now I'll finish ninth grade, I'll enroll. Then everything will be possible, she told him. And indeed, after graduating from ninth grade, she entered the school and moved into a dormitory. Now their meetings became more frequent and free. And you do not want to move in with me? Once John asked Catherine. Come on, your mother will never accept me. She laughed back at him. Why do you think so? If I ask, then at any rate will accept, he replied. I don't even know. She shrugged and thought, if he was right, she wouldn't mind living in a big house with everything. Well, let me introduce you to her tomorrow, said the young man. It's a bit scary, Catherine told him. You are with me, do not be afraid of anything, he told her then. That day he walked her to the dormitory, and the next day he came to go to his mother's house to visit. In fact, John was afraid too, because the mother was an overbearing woman and could say a lot of things right in her eyes. But in front of the girl, it was impossible to fall face in the dirt, so since he had already said it, he had to enforce it. They took a cab to his house and got out. Catherine immediately appreciated the house in which her young man lived. They entered the courtyard. From there they went up the steps. John opened the door. A woman was sitting in the hall on a couch reading some kind of magazine. Hello, Catherine said to her. Hello, the mother was shocked to see who her son was with. Mom, this is Catherine, my girlfriend, he said. Who is it? Now she asked on purpose. Well, don't pretend you didn't hear, my girlfriend. Catherine saw it. If on the street he was all of himself, now in front of his mother, it seemed even height became smaller. And why did you bring her here? Did not understand the woman, and she did not care that Catherine also hears all this. We want to live together, replied the guy. You brats, how old are you? Looked at the girl. 15, she replied. And you 16? Looked the mother at her son. So what? He shrugged his shoulders. He's still asking me what? The mother turned away from them. She went and poured herself a glass of water, drank it. Mom, what are you doing? We've always been able to agree. And now, when I have something that started somewhere, you start? John tried to say something to her. I'm starting. I think you're starting. Okay, you meet, walk somewhere there on the street, in the back alley, but to live together. She was shocked. Mom, Catherine is from an orphanage. Now she is studying at a college and lives in a dormitory. I do not think that there are ideal conditions for a girl to live, began to explain her son. That's what I'm looking at, dressed all the best at once, said the woman. If Catherine does not stay to live with us, then I'm leaving. He put conditions in front of his mother. Come on, where will you go? She stood arms at her sides. I don't know, I'll find somewhere to go. He took his backpack, hung it behind his back, then gave his hand to Catherine, and together they headed for the door. John, stop performing. His mother stopped him. What? He turned around. You want to stay? She sighed and sat down on the sofa. Well, there, it was necessary to start with this, although he was afraid of her, but still could change her mind. Now John and Catherine lived on the second floor in his room. When she told her girlfriends about it, they were jealous. At first, everything was fine. John's mother would leave for work early in the morning, so the young people would come down unhindered. They would have breakfast for just coffee, and then each of them would go off to study. They came back together too, while the woman was still out. They were allowed to do whatever they wanted. Young people felt like adults. That's where it all started. Well, how long will you be waiting? John asked Catherine. He was ready to go out, but she was still in the bathroom. I probably won't go anywhere today. I went out yesterday, she told him. What could you have poisoned yourself with? We all ate together? He didn't understand. You go and I'll lie down, she said, and she started vomiting again. The boy also decided not to go anywhere. He called his mother and asked where the first aid kit was. What's wrong? She asked him. Ekaterina is sick. She is gargling, he answered. Are you sure it's poisoning? His mother asked him a question. What else could it be? He asked her in reply. Well, I don't know. You are adults. You do all sorts of things. His mother hinted to him differently. Mom, what are you talking about? He even became offended. Go to the bathroom. There is a drawer above the sink. It contains various medicines, as well as pregnancy tests. Take the test first, and then we'll take the pills, she told him. John seemed to be in shock. He went where his mother said, took the strip, and brought it to Catherine. Open the doors, he asked her. Why? She couldn't go in there. Well, open it, insisted John. Catherine opened the door ajar. He handed her the strip. "What is it?" She did not understand. "Read it. It says it all." Just now, just like that, he spoke to his mother, but now in front of the girl was confident. "Are you crazy? Where did you get this?" asked Catherine when she read what he gave her. "Catherine, please do everything it says," he asked her. The girl did everything, unknown from what, maybe shock or fright, but she felt better. She came out of the bathroom. Her eyes were big, 2 lines scarlet on a thin white stripe. "What does that mean?" John asked her. "That's what it means. You're going to be a daddy soon," she answered him. "Katya, what are you doing? We are still children." He was scared. She sat down on the bed and didn't know what to do. On the one hand, she had always thought her mother had done wrong in abandoning her, and if she had a child, she would never have done anything with it. But on the other hand, 15 years old, it turns out that at 16 she would give birth, and that meant no education and nothing more. In the evening, Naomi came home. She went through, put her bag down, washed her hands, changed her clothes, and went to the children's bedroom. "Well, what did those strips show you?" she asked. "Here," gave her Catherine. "I knew it. Permissiveness does not lead to good." The woman went downstairs, sat down at the table, and started calling someone. "Mom, where are you calling?" her son asked her. "What do you mean?" To the doctor. She looked at him with an incomprehensible look. "What doctor? We're not going to have an abortion. We're going to have a baby," John replied. "Do you realize what a burden you're putting on your neck?" she told him. "Mom, remember yourself." The boy looked at her point blank. She never wanted to tell her son that, but now she had to. "So what? I made a mistake then. Yes, it was wrong. But now I am smarter and older than you," she said. It's just that Naomi herself had an abortion when she was young and couldn't have children for a long time. It wasn't until she was 35, when she had money, that she got pregnant. "I'm not going to let my girlfriend have an abortion." John stood his ground. "And no one wants to ask me." Catherine put in her word. "Come on, what do you want to say?" Naomi listened to her. "I am also against abortion," she answered. "Good," agreed the mother. She thought about the fact that a grandson is not so bad. All through the pregnancy, Catherine had toxicosis. Whatever she looked at, whatever she ate, everything made her sick. It was so annoying, and she wanted to give birth quickly and get rid of it. She had a baby girl whom she named Elizabeth. Now they lived in a big, beautiful house where Elizabeth was loved, cherished, and nurtured by everyone. In addition to mom and dad and grandma, she also had a nanny. At first, Catherine tried to be a decent mother, but at some point she got bored with everything. One day she called her girlfriends and invited them to visit her. "Katua, and we will not be scolded," they asked her. "I'm as much the mistress here as they are," she told them, bragging, even though she and John were not even married yet. The girls did all kinds of things today. When Naomi came home from work, she was shocked. "What are you doing? You've got a little kid," she said to the girl. "What I want. I do what I want. None of your business." Catherine had a little drink today, so her tongue was loose. "So," shook her head at the woman. It was their first quarrel, but then the more reproachful Naomi was, the more unbridled the girl behaved. "John, don't you think a mother like that can't be trusted with a child?" One day a mother sat down to talk to her son. "What can I do? She doesn't listen to me in any way," he told her. "She won't listen to you. She'll listen to me." Naomi was sure of it. "How will she listen to you?" John smirked back. He realized that if Catherine started doing things, she would not stop at anything. "Where are you going? You're not going anywhere today." Naomi stood in the doorway and wouldn't let the girl go anywhere. "Who told me that, you?" Catherine stood and looked at her brazenly. "Who the hell are you?" The mother did not understand. Catherine bypassed her and just walked out of the house. She had no intention of listening to anyone. After she returned and came to the room where John was, he saw the state she was in. "You, where have you been? You stink. You're all dirty," he grumbled. "What's wrong with you?" she asked him. "I don't like everything," the guy told her. "Don't look and don't smell it," just said the girl and went to bed. In the morning there was a debriefing. "Do you even know what your kid does?" Naomi asked her. "And what he does?" Catherine wondered. "How many teeth she grew, whether she went or not, do you know all that?" The woman continued to ask questions. "Oh, leave me alone." She had a headache after yesterday and had no intention of talking to anyone. "So John, we have to decide something. Are you going to continue living with this girl?" Mom emphasized the last word in her voice. "I don't know." John glanced at Catherine. He had long ago lost his feelings for her, but some affection remained. And then there was the child they shared. "So, dear, I'm filing documents to the court to deprive you of maternal rights, and do not think that I will not succeed," Naomi said seriously. "How can you deprive a child of its mother?" Today, Catherine was still laughing. "You want to know how? You'll find out soon enough." And the mother began to do everything as she had planned. John's friends, John himself, his mother proved that Catherine was leading an inappropriate life, that she couldn't be left with the child. The woman did everything to win the trial. And now, at the age of 18, Catherine is again alone on the street. The child is left with his father, and she stands and cannot believe that everything really happened like that. "Yes, and fuck you," she shouted from behind the gate. Elizabeth was now living in the big house with her father and grandmother. For some reason, John thought he could do anything now that he was rid of Catherine. He could go out with his friends or something. But his mother forbade him everything, thus spoiling his plans. The young man was not allowed to go out, not to bring anyone to his house. "Am I a prisoner here?" he asked his mother. "Did you get it from your girlfriend?" She didn't understand him. "I'm a young guy. I want to go out. I want to meet friends," he told her. At the meeting already sat the grandmother next to little Elizabeth and looked at her. "Mom," he told her. "What, son?" She answered him. Naomi did not recognize her son, who until a few years ago had ducked his head at the sight of her. "Why can't I go out?" He started all over again. "Why do I have to sit with your child?" the grandmother asked back. John was getting more and more pissed off every day. One day his mother was at work. He left home. His friends called him to some party. How he dreamed of it. And now that he was out, he was having a blast. He was so drunk, they had to call an ambulance. While they were taking him out, he fell a couple times and hit his head on the stairs. "Hello, Naomi." Her phone rang at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yes, hello. Of course, she was not used to such calls in the middle of the night, but now it was not a work call at all. "Your son is in the 35th hospital. Could you come over?" A man's voice asked her. "What's wrong with him?" The woman was worried. "He's dead drunk and his head has been punctured," the man said. It was impossible to tell from his words whether he was okay or not. The mother came to the hospital. While she was filling out paperwork and waiting for the doctor, she felt sick. Someone from the medical staff gave her a sedative, but it did not help her, and today she also went to the hospital. Elizabeth was left at home with the nanny. By morning, Naomi was feeling better, but she decided to stay in the hospital one more day. John also came to his senses. It turned out that he had a small wound on his head, but now he was on IVs, only because he was intoxicated from alcohol. A couple days later, both mother and son came home. Elizabeth was doing fine. The woman who stayed with her made everything just right. The girl went to daycare. The nanny took care of her. She also took her for walks and fed her. Basically, she relieved both her grandmother and her father of the daily chores. Naomi, when she came to her senses, immediately summoned her son to talk to her. "John, what's going on?" she asked him. "Nothing is going on." It was obvious that he was not eager to talk. "Then what was it? Why am I getting calls at 3 in the morning saying you're not okay?" she asked him. "And you would have kept me home even longer. I would not have gotten so drunk," he sassed his mother again. It was getting out of hand. Every day the woman was nervous. She didn't understand what could have happened to the child. But since the woman herself had developed this whole situation, it was necessary not to give up, but to do everything as it should be done. "Elizabeth, come and play with me." Her grandmother held out her hand. "No, I don't want to. I'd rather go with the nanny," the girl told her. "Why don't you want to go with Grandma?" She didn't understand. And Elizabeth was simply afraid of this bossy woman. The girl was afraid of everything in this house. The house itself was big. Her daddy didn't pay attention to her. Her grandmother kept pointing things out. Everything was wrong. And only the nanny, this kind woman, hugged her and spoke in a soft, gentle voice. When John was discharged from the hospital, he drove home, not telling Elizabeth anything yet. There was a funeral to attend to. He gave out instructions, and the administration helped with everything. And after that, the guy decided that he had a big grief, and it needed to be flooded. So he took a bottle out of the fridge, drank it, felt better right away. And it started happening every day. Since his mother left a lot of money, John had nothing to worry about. He didn't notice his daughter at all, but he did everything for himself. "John, would you stop it?" The nanny came up to him and tried to tell him what to do. "What, you're gonna tell me what to do?" He'd tell her. "You have a daughter growing up. She's already in 2nd grade. She's missing her daddy and mommy, and her grandmother is gone," the woman said. "So they pay you money for what? To watch the girl. So watch her," he told her. She tried her best to hide from the girl what was going on in the house, and there was a complete mess. The young man not only drank, he led friends. Every day to his house came to different girls, and it was unclear where he takes them and what they can do when they come here. Catherine, after being kicked out of the rich house, laughed at first, sending her former relatives far away. But after a while, she realized that she had nowhere to go. She didn't know what to do. At first, she stayed with one friend, then with another. But it was impossible to live like this all the time, and the girl decided to go to the city where her mother lived. It was not so far away, so the girl got there quickly. Of course, she didn't know anyone here, so Catherine couldn't think of anything better to do than to find her mom. It wasn't that hard to do, because when the girl got to the orphanage, she was already more than 9 years old. She remembered, of course, not very accurately from where she was taken, and let Catherine knew the address inaccurately, but she knew exactly what the name of the village was. "Hello, can you tell me if there are buses?" she asked at the bus station. When she was answered in the affirmative, the girl rejoiced. She also learned that tickets can be purchased directly in the cabin of the vehicle, and now she stood and waited for her bus to come. She drove, looked out the window, and thought to herself what she would say to the woman who had left her so many years ago and then never even came once. But later Catherine decided to leave these thoughts for later. Here she will meet with her, there and talk. It was not far to go, so in half an hour Catherine was at the place. She got off the bus and looked around. Yes, everything had changed in the village, and she did not remember much here. "Hello, excuse me, Tony, where is the house of the Walkers?" she asked a passerby who passed by the stop. "Oh, it's over there." He showed her his hand in the direction. "Thank you," answered Catherine, and went where she had just been shown. The closer she got, the more recognizable the street became. For some reason her legs began to shake. She felt uneasy inside, but since she had already arrived, she decided to see it through. From afar she saw her house, those windows and gates that were etched in her memory. They were so shaky that they probably would have fallen down long ago, but they were just propped up with boards, and that was when the girl was still living here. She remembers that day. Her mom and some other people were sitting in the kitchen, talking loudly, and then the door opened, and some questioning women came in. They spoke sternly to everyone, and then they called out to her. "Mama," cried the girl then, and clung to the fence to stay. "You will be better there," the woman said then. Catherine saw that she was crying, but did nothing. What happened next, the girl did not remember, and then she somehow got used to the orphanage, where she began to live in the future. She approached, yanked the gate. It was unlocked. Catherine went inside. A dog barked loudly, but she was not afraid of it. Everything here was dirty, greasy. The girl stepped on the steps and did not touch anything. The door was ajar. Catherine stepped through it. The house smelled of something sour. She went into the kitchen, and suddenly it struck her. What if her mother no longer lived here? What if someone else lived here? And now, she will go into the house, and there are other owners. And what will she say? "Hello, I came to visit you." It made me laugh. She went further into the room, where it was a mess, and saw a woman sleeping on the couch. "Hey," she poked her. "Who are you?" She woke up. It was obvious she had a fun night last night. "And you do not recognize me?" asked her Catherine. "No, why should I?" The woman sat on the couch and somehow wiped her eyes. "Actually, I am your daughter, which you so easily gave up a few years ago," said the girl. Kaya looked with a squint at her landlady, and as if remembering whether it was true or not. "Did you have any other daughter?" The girl asked her, hurt that her mother didn't even remember her. "How are you doing here?" her mother asked and looked around. It was obvious that she was looking for something with her eyes, probably something to hang over with. "And all, I turned 18 in the orphanage, said goodbye, and sent to all 4 sides," said the daughter as if she was mocking the woman. Of course, Catherine had lied to her, but she wouldn't tell her now what had happened to her. She was still standing in the middle of the room because she didn't know where to sit down. Everything was piled up everywhere, and what wasn't piled up was dirty. Well, come in, make yourself comfortable. The woman stood up and went outside. Catherine smirked bitterly. She herself did not know what to expect from the meeting with this person, but for some reason it seemed to her that now, when she came to her, her mother will begin to apologize, saying that she was wrong or something like that. But the girl never waited for any of that. The mother came back. She started unpacking, rattling something in the kitchen. She didn't pay any attention to her daughter. She stood looking at her, wanting to address her, but not knowing what to call her. Mom, the language did not turn. Selena, she came into the kitchen and looked at her. What's all this officiousness? The woman turned to her and asked in a hoarse voice. And how should I call you? I cannot call you Mom. Inside Catherine raged such contradictions. She seemed to be offended by her, but on the other hand, she realized that in the orphanage she lived better than she would have lived here. Okay, whatever you want to call it. She exhaled, poured some water into a bowl, and put it on the stove. Don't you have gas? The girl asked. And who will pay for it? Her mother did not turn to her. Now Catherine herself did not know why she came here. Perhaps she just wanted to look into the eyes of this man, but on the other hand, she had nowhere else to go. Can I stay with you for a few days? Asked her daughter, but she realized that she could not live in this house. What are you asking, of course, she replied. The water in the iron bowl was boiling. Selima added some brew to it. Then she poured it into mugs, put one for Catherine and one for herself, and sat down at the table. Well, what do you want from me? An apology or an explanation? The woman asked her on an exhalation. No, I don't want anything from you. I understand that in the orphanage I was better than here. Catherine once again realized it to herself. Daughter, you apologized to me, but it's true, everything happened that way. I was young then, came from the disco, did not understand anything, and then a few months later I found out that I was pregnant. What only I did not do, cabinets moved, bags dragged to discount the pregnancy, but I did nothing, had to give birth, and here you see how, she waved her hands. I don't blame you for anything, it's okay. If I had nothing in my life, I wouldn't have come here, her daughter told her. At that moment, she felt sorry for her mother, and now she transferred the situation to herself. After all, now she too had left a child behind. Yes, she was forcibly deprived of parental rights, but she did nothing to stay. So, you'll stay here? The woman spoke in a different tone of voice now. And let's clean up here? Catherine told her. Now, just I'll step back a little, and then we'll clean up right away, Selena promised her. While she was drinking tea, doing something else, Catherine went into the room and started dumping junk in the middle. There was a lot of stuff in here. Then the girl brought some boxes from the street, began to put everything there. And now, already half of the room was free. Catherine went to get some water, started to wash everything. It was so disgusting, but there was nothing to do. If she wanted to stay here, she needed to clear a space. Selena joined her, and by the end of the day, the house was indeed much cleaner and seemed even brighter. Well, wow, sat the woman down on the couch where she had slept and looked around. Did you imagine that you could be like this? Smiled Catherine. She liked what they had done. If you could buy some wallpaper and put a carpet on the floor, it would be just like people, she thought about you. Are you judging me? The woman looked at her. Mom? Catherine said the word and immediately fell silent. Well, talk, smiled that one, realizing that this word she said involuntarily. If you promise me not to drink, we will do everything with you here, answered her daughter, although she did not know where to take what. I don't drink, so friends drop by sometimes, but mostly I work. She showed her hands, which were really not like what they should be at this age. What do you do? The girl wanted to know. In summer I pick potatoes, collect them from the fields, and in winter sow, wherever I have to. Finish. And then I came here, she missed some points, and told me about herself briefly. I see, nodded Mickey. Well, now it's your turn, she told him. I've lived in this town all my life with my mom, dad, went to school, then institute. He shrugged and realized he had the usual story of an average person. And what, are you really interested in someone like me? She asked him. Why wouldn't I be? They say opposites attract, he smiled. On the other hand, yes, she shook her head. After that, Mickey and Catherine began to have a close relationship. He came to see her almost every day. They went for rides somewhere. He told her a lot, showed her a lot. The girl realized that the guy was smart, and then she found out where he worked. and was also quite surprised. Not even 6 months later, when Mickey offered the girl to rent an apartment in the city, she did not refuse. And now they were already living together in a rented apartment. They were doing well. "Catherine, would you marry me?" Mickey asked her one evening. "Is that a proposal?" She laughed to hide her embarrassment. "Well, not yet, just asking," he said in reply. "I guess it is," she shrugged. "That's it, I hear you," he hugged her. Maybe it seemed to Mickey that he was all decent, proper, with an education, with a job, took pity on this poor girl, but he liked it so much with her. She wasn't like any other girl he knew. And then, on New Year's Eve, which they celebrated at his parents' house, Mickey was the last one to arrive. "Where are you going? We're all waiting for you," his mother told him. "Wait, Mom." He pushed her away and looked at his girlfriend. "What?" She examined herself, thinking that maybe she had put on the wrong dress. "Catherine," he got down on one knee in front of her, "will you become my wife?" It was obvious that the guy was very embarrassed, but the girl knew that he often had it. He handed her a ring and flowers, and then sat in this pose and waited. And in the meantime she cried. No one had ever proposed anything like that to her before, not even when they'd lived with John, who'd never even mentioned a wedding. Of course, she went up to him and took the ring. He stood up and they embraced. Catherine saw Mickey's mother press her lips together. It was clear that the girl from the orphanage was of no use to anyone in the family. Everyone immediately thought only bad things. But now she promised herself to prove to them that she wasn't like that and could be better. "Catherine, I'm having a bachelor party with my friends tonight," he told her a week before the wedding. "If you want, I can take you somewhere too." Mickey had always been like that. If he realized he was doing something, his future wife shouldn't be bored and waiting for him. Now he was offering her a choice. "If you don't mind, I'd like to go to my mom's village. I have friends there, and I'd like to talk to my mom," she answered. "Okay, if that's what you want, let's go," he smiled at her. Mickey had long ago realized that despite the way the girl looked and talked, she was very responsive and was always ready to help. She forgave her mother, even though she might have hated her. They got into the car, went to the store. The girl bought everything that was necessary. And there they were. Mickey left his fiancée and went to pick up his friends. They decided to surprise him today. Young people came to the local cafe, which was in their own town, took a seat at the table, which was booked in advance by Mickey. "Mickey, did you know that your Catherine already has a child?" one of the guys asked him. What child?" He looked at him. "Just an ordinary baby, not a little baby anymore," smiled his friend. "How do you know that?" The guy looked at him. "And I used to study in the same city where she used to live. Her ex-mother-in-law was not the last person. There were a lot of stories about them. And that's how I know," he told him. At that moment, Mickey's fists clenched into fists. He couldn't believe it was true. He made it to the end with the guys today, but he wanted so badly to go home and ask Catherine everything. But she wasn't in, so he had to wait until tomorrow. The next day he called Catherine, told her to take the bus to the city, and even though it was a day off, he went to work. He had to work a lot, coming home late at night. When he arrived, the girl was already asleep, but Mickey didn't care much. He woke up his future wife. "What are you doing?" She didn't understand what he wanted from her. "Catherine, I need to talk to you," he told her seriously. "Okay," she rubbed her eyes and went into the kitchen. "Tell me, is it true that you have a child?" he asked her, and the girl at that moment was silent and did not say anything. "Well, why are you silent? Why you did not tell me about it? We have always talked about everything," he interrogated her. "How did you know about it?" She wanted to understand where it was coming from. "It doesn't matter if I already know about it. You're not the only one who knows about it." Mickey looked at her. She didn't know what to say. "Mickey," she was ready to cry. "Catherine, you can't start life by lying," he told her. "I didn't want to tell you about it because there's a very bad story there," cried the girl. "And what is the story there?" I wanted him to hear it. "You understand, I was 16 years old. I was a minor. I did not understand anything, and he has a mother," cried the girl even harder. "What about his mother?" It was like Mickey was pulling information out of her. "She wasn't the last person in town. Even if I wanted to, they'd still take that baby away from me," she continued to cry. "So, tell me please everything in order, from the moment you met to the moment how you ended up here." He decided not to press her, let her gather herself and speak. And Catherine began to tell him about their life with John, how it was, what happened, and how it ended. Why couldn't you have told me that right away? Do you think I wouldn't have understood? He asked her. Mickey, imagine the situation. You and I meet for the second time. You say to me, tell me about yourself. And I'm like, oh, I'm an orphanage. I have such a bad temper. And when I was a teenager, I lived with a man, and I have a child with him, which I have not seen for so long. And you, oh, Catherine, how I love you. You have no idea. I think only if you heard about it, we would no longer be together. She wiped her tears. Come to me, he called out to her. And when she came over, he put her on his lap and hugged her. Since they had it all figured out tonight, the wedding was not canceled. Everything was as they had planned. It was just the way it was. Of course, the groom's mom was not very happy about the passion that her son chose for himself. But apparently he had weight in the family, so no one said anything, and everything went well. Catherine did not know about it, but at the time of the wedding, she was already pregnant. It only came to light a month and a half later. Mickey was overjoyed, as were his parents, that they would soon become grandparents. Now Catherine did everything to keep the family together. She gave up all her bad habits, wanted her to have healthy children. The girl communicated more closely with her mother. She also corrected herself. Yes, she could drink, but on some holidays, not like before. As her daughter had promised her, she helped her with the improvement of the house. The very curtains for the windows, the carpet on the floor, and everything else were bought. And now, when Catherine came to visit her, she did not recognize the house in which she got when she was here for the first time. On the due date, the family had a long-awaited son. Mickey chose a name for him himself. He decided to call him Steve. Catherine had nothing against it. The family was idyllic. The husband worked. He provided for the family very well. But Catherine also planned to go out to work somewhere after the child goes to kindergarten. She tried to be an ideal wife and mother, as well as a daughter-in-law. She did everything to make her family happy. Now, thinking back to her past self, she thought how wrong she had behaved. If she hadn't acted like that then, nothing would have happened that happened then. But on the other hand, if all that hadn't happened, she wouldn't have Mickey or Steve now. That was usually what Catherine thought about when her husband was late at work. She put her son to bed and sat alone in the kitchen. Then the thoughts overwhelmed her. When Stivik turned 1.5 years old, he went to kindergarten. There were no problems with the queues, so Catherine could calmly go and get a job. One of the stores needed a salesperson, and she was easily hired there. And I got a job, she told her husband in the evening. I'm so happy for you, he smiled. Now, who knew Catherine before would never have recognized her. It was a very serious girl who went to work every day, and after the working day, took her son from kindergarten and came home. There she did everything herself, cooking dinner, doing laundry, cleaning, and everything else. Mickey couldn't get enough of his wife. Mickey himself held not the least position in town. Right now he had her that way, but then he knew he would definitely go higher. Catherine could have chosen not to work, but she had chosen herself to do so, so Mickey didn't mind at all. Sometimes Catherine would sit in the kitchen. She would pull out a small photograph that had a picture of her daughter on it. She would reminisce and cry, but there was nothing she could do now because the court had stripped her of her maternal rights. Once she tried to talk to her husband about her daughter, that he could help her in this matter, but Mickey didn't even want to hear about it. Catherine even thought of going to John's house to see from afar how her daughter had grown up now, what she was doing. But she didn't dare to do it. What if Mickey finds out? So the girl did not remember, at least tried to do so, killed in herself this feeling. When Steve was 3 years old, Catherine felt that she was pregnant again. Of course, she immediately informed Michael about it. He was very happy about the news. The famine was becoming more, and this could not help but please. Now pregnant Catherine, together with Steve, often went to her mother. There they helped her in the vegetable garden, did something around the house. Catherine saw how the woman really improved. It's all for your sake, daughter, Selena often told her. Mom, what are you saying? You would have done it all yourself. You just needed a push. You had no one to live for, said to her the girl. Of course, Selena wanted to see her family more often, but as they came to see her, she didn't say anything. Mickey, I don't feel well. Catherine woke him up one night. She had a stomach ache and she felt very nauseous. Without saying a word, the husband immediately started the car and put his wife in it. He did not forget about Steve, because he could not be left alone at home. The husband brought her to the hospital. There was a threat of miscarriage. Catherine was left there. They told her she would be there for a long time. It was still 4 months before the birth, but she was not upset because the most important thing was the health of the child. So she agreed to everything the doctors told her. Now Mickey was left alone with Steve, but he knew everything, understood how and what to do, was a great father for the boy. Catherine was discharged. Now she went on maternity leave, although before she thought she would work until the last minute. A week before her due date, she went into labor. Mickey took his wife to the hospital as usual, and now he was the father of not one son, but 2. The second boy was named Anthony, a name also thought up by the father. When his wife returned from the hospital, she looked at her family from the outside and couldn't believe she was like this. 5 years ago, she could not even think that such a thing was possible. Catherine never suspected that she would become a decent mother and that she would find a husband like that, and in general did not dream. One evening she and Mickey were lying in bed. Catherine put her arms around him. "You hug me as if you want to say something," he said to her. "Mish, I want to talk to you about my daughter," she said quietly. "Please don't start with that," he asked her. "Why? It's my child." "If you love me, why can't you accept her?" she asked. At that moment she was lying on his chest, tears rolling from her eyes. "I don't want to hear anything about your past. You live with me now. We have 2 children and you have no one else," he told her sternly. "I understand." "Well, but imagine if I had her now." She didn't know what argument to pick up. "Catherine, I already told you that I do not want to bring up this topic. That's it, finish talking. You put the point," and his wife understood that he really will not talk about it anymore. John, on the other hand, continued to enjoy life all this time. He went out as long as there was money left from his mother, brought his friends home. Whatever they did there. He took different girls home. He wasn't interested in his daughter's life at all. As long as the nanny was around, everything was more or less normal. The woman fed the girl, she took her to school, she helped her with her classes, but at one point it was over. "You know, we don't need your services anymore." John came up to her. The girl was in the 3rd grade. Of course, the woman was shocked by the news. "You realize that you'll let your daughter's life on a whim, and nothing good will come out of it," she said to the young father. "And that's not your problem at all," John told her then. The nanny cried, Elizabeth cried, but there was nothing they could do. The woman had left, and now things were getting very bad. When she and her mother used to live in this big house, there used to be a housekeeper who cleaned and cooked. Now she had to be fired because there was no money. And then it got to the point where the young man started selling everything. First, he sold his mother's car, which was restored after the accident, and then his own. There was nothing else to sell. He only had this house and that was it. "Dad, I'm hungry." Elizabeth came up to him. "And what?" "Go and look for something in the refrigerator," he told her. "There's nothing there," the girl answered him. Then the father would order some fast food, pizza, a burger or something like that, and feed it to his daughter. He didn't care if she had a learning disability or anything like that, or if she went to school or not. He didn't care. "Daddy, help me with my homework." Elizabeth was used to the fact that before she and the nanny did everything together, but now there was no help from anyone. John continued to drive different girls, from which the girl suffered, but tried not to show it. "Do you have a child?" Another girl came to him. "And you what? It stresses you." John did not understand her. At some point, Elizabeth realized that she had to find the mother. At first, she tried to do it through social networks, but she didn't know where to start. And no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't find her. "Elizabeth, help me?" Her father called her one day. She went downstairs, saw that he was putting some snacks on the table, and realized that there would be guests again tonight. It didn't make her happy, but she couldn't help him. They put everything on the table together, and this time the girl dared to ask him about her mother. "Daddy, where is my mother now?" she asked him. "What?" He turned to her. "Why doesn't she come to see me?" That worried the girl very much. When she began to think a little, dreamed that here, the doors will open, and there will enter Mom. "Listen to me, forget about her. She doesn't need you," her father said. "And you need me." Elizabeth sat down on the sofa and didn't look at her father. "What do you think? If you live in this house, do you think I need you or not?" John smirked to himself, because if it wasn't for his mother, he would never have done that. Yeah, he and Catherine would have lived together for a while, and then they just split up. And if she wanted to keep the baby, he'd have been fine with that. But no, the mother insisted, and now he has to deal with this little one. As Elizabeth had expected, that evening her father had guests. Not only his friends were there, but also his girlfriends, all of which Elizabeth disliked very much. She went to her room, and when she went up the stairs, she saw that on the bar counter there was her father's phone. The girl realized that he probably had her mom's phone. She quietly went downstairs, took the phone, and went to her room and locked herself in. In the phone she did find an entry for wife. She wrote the number down for herself. Now the only thing left was to call, but the girl did not dare to do it because she was afraid that her mother would not answer her or would answer with a refusal. Today she decided to postpone the call indefinitely. And then life with her father began to be a nightmare. Elizabeth had to go to school in the morning, but no one would take her there. Dad was asleep. She could not wake him up. He only mooed and said nothing, no matter what the girl did. Then she decided she would skip school today. But it started to go on like this every day. At home there was no food at all, and since the father was inadequate, Elizabeth did not know what to do. She found something in the freezer, dumplings, which remained from unknown times, cooked them herself, ate something. Her father was inadequate or absent every night. At some point John realized that there was no money at all, and there was nowhere to get it. So he decided to sell the house. He put it on the market. Buyers were found very quickly because the price was acceptable. After processing all the documents and receiving the money, the young man was so happy that he invited all his friends again. Of course, he thought about the fact that he needed an apartment in advance because it was necessary to live somewhere. And the realtor, who helped to sell the house, immediately found him an apartment. The difference that remained now pleased the young man. He realized that he could invite his friends over and go out with them. "Dad, do you realize that your friends appear only when you have money?" a wise daughter once told him. "No one asks you anything at all," he told her. Elizabeth was now going to school twice a week or even less. Teachers would call, but John would tell them she had a stomachache or headache or some other excuse. "Daddy, but now you have money. Let's buy some food. I can even cook, fry eggs or make dumplings," she told him. "Listen, your grandmother needed you, not me, so live as you want." He had no time to talk to his little daughter. He had nothing else on his mind. "How could it be? I am a little child," cried Elizabeth, but her father paid no attention to it. When the girl already had everything boiled up, she called her mother. The second buzzer, the third, Catherine did not pick up the phone. But Elizabeth did not leave attempts to call her mother, so the next day she dialed her again, and then again, but still could not get through to the woman. Now, if the girl went to school, she got there on her own. Clothes were unlike anything else. Where she could iron, she ironed. Where she could launder. But for the most part, it was still unkempt. Teachers brought this to her father's attention, and he agreed, but did nothing about it. Elizabeth was always hungry. Every day she cried. Her nerves were on edge, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst thing happened when John met Julianne. He was at the club, and she came up to him. "Hi," the girl sat down to a young man who was sitting, drinking not the cheapest alcohol. "Hi," he smiled back at her. "Why are you bored alone?" she asked him. "Not alone anymore, but with you," thought the guy jokingly. "Shall we dance?" she asked, pointing to the dance floor where some very rousing music was playing. They had fun and danced in the club, and at home, the hungry daughter sat and cried. She really thought about complaining to someone, but she didn't know who, and she was afraid that if her father found out, it would be worse for her. "Let's go to my place," John said to his new girlfriend. "Why not?" She shrugged her shoulders. "Why not?" He didn't understand. "I don't know, a man like that and alone," she flirted with him. That day they arrived home. John came in quickly, and while Julian stayed in the hallway, he locked the girl in the closet and showed her his fist. "Just yell," he told her, and slammed the door shut. "Daddy," she only managed to utter, and cried again. She heard some woman laughing in the room, her father saying something, but she couldn't do anything. "Tell me, how do you feel about children?" John asked his new friend. "Oh, I don't like children at all," she wrinkled her nose. "So, if you and I get married, we won't have children?" he asked her. Exactly no. She was sure of it. Then he thought about where he would put the girl, so that she did not interfere with his life. But he decided to think about that later. Tonight Elizabeth spent the whole night in the pantry where her father had locked her up. The next day she did not go to school again. The class teacher had already started sounding the alarm, but John always showed up on time. The girl was suffering, and her father didn't care about her suffering. One day Julianne called and said she'd be right there. John was ready for her. He called Elizabeth over and told her that she would have to sit in the pantry again today. "Papa, why don't you love me?" she cried. "I do, but only in my own way," he answered her. The girl decided that if everything will be repeated, she will simply run away from home. She had already prepared some things for herself and thought that even if she did it, no one would notice her disappearance. And so, today Julianne was at their house again. How the girl hated her, but there was nothing she could do. "Oh, John, you have such a beautiful apartment," Julianne was telling him. "I wish we had met earlier," the young man said sadly. "What was earlier?" The girl wanted to know. "We lived in a big house, we had everything. Remember how good it was before." "Who are we?" Julianne wondered. "We," he hesitated, not knowing what to say. "With Mom." "You live with Mom," she laughed. "Never mind," he waved his hand. "Let's get something to drink." She got up from the couch and headed for the bar. "Yes, look, there must be something there." He sat and admired the beautiful figure of the girl. Julianne found everything she needed. She took out the glasses, poured it, and then in the refrigerator she saw a jar of seafood and put it on the table. They sat and talked and laughed, and Julianne didn't even realize that at that moment there was a little girl sitting in the pantry who was very hungry and hated it very much. "John, shall we go to the club tomorrow?" she said to him. "If you want to, of course we will," he said. And then, all evening and all night they were here, and Elizabeth suffered in a small closed room. "Papa, I can't go on like this," his daughter said to him when Julianne had gone and he let her out of the closet. "Well, why can't you sit there? The lights are on, there are books." He didn't understand. "Well, how are you going to live with her?" "I'm not going to disappear," she asked him. "We'll think of something," he smiled. Elizabeth realized that he could only think of bad things. Now it occurred to her that her father could get rid of her, sending her to boarding school where children live and study. The girl shook her head to push the bad thoughts away. Today, all day long, she was doing her lessons. She hadn't been to school again for a few days, so she needed to do everything the kids in the class had done over. In the evening, she opened the refrigerator, saw that there was cheese, cut herself a few slices, put them on bread, drank some tea, and then went to bed. The girl was not by years smart and realized that if it goes on like this, she will not have to wait for something good from life. Elizabeth specifically decided in her head that she needed to find her mother. If she could do that, then they would work things out together. The girl called her, but she never picked up. "Catherine, who's calling you all the time?" Mickey asked her, looking at the phone, which had been ringing a lot the last few days. "I don't know, some unknown number, I don't want to answer," she said, and smiled at her husband. Everything was going well in their family now. The children went to kindergarten. Catherine went back to work. Mickey got his promotion, which he had been waiting for. "Take it, maybe it's something serious." Mickey didn't understand why she didn't want to answer. "All right, if they call again, I'll take it." She didn't understand what the problem was. She doesn't want to answer the phone. Why is her husband so obsessed with it? And then, one day when she was at work and shared this conversation with her partner, she just laughed back. "Don't you realize he's jealous of you?" her friend told her. "And why? I have never given a reason." Catherine was surprised. She did not even think about it. "And you did not give, and he thinks about himself," admonished her friend. "So I see I will take now from all the numbers." She lowered her eyes and realized that it really may be so. Today, Catherine came home and put the phone next to her so that if someone called, she wouldn't miss the call. The children were playing in their room. Catherine decided to cook a delicious dinner for her husband. She went to the kitchen. The phone was left lying on the sofa. When she remembered about it and came, there were already 2 missed calls, as Catherine then thought that she could call back herself. But for some reason, the thought didn't occur to her at the time. Brr, Mickey came home. "What's up?" Catherine met him in the hallway. "It's freezing outside," he told her. "So you only made it from the car to the driveway," she wondered. Today she went outside. "Yes, it's cold, but if you dress warmly, you can't tell. Look, I'm in summer shoes." He showed her his feet. And indeed, Catherine remembered that today he had an important meeting, and he asked her to get these shoes. "Okay, come in. I prepared a festive dinner," smiled his wife. "What's the occasion?" He didn't understand. "There is no occasion. I just want to remind you that I love you very much, and very much appreciated. And I am also happy that once you came to me in that village." She put her arms around him and kissed him. "Come here," he hugged her. John was home. He realized that at any moment the guardianship could come and check on him, because the teachers had already complained, and what if he had Juliana as a guest, and then what would they see? Then the girl would find out he had a child too, and he didn't want that at all. He had, as loud as those words sounded, fallen in love with her. Tonight he went to the store, bought some groceries, and decided to make his daughter happy by cooking something for dinner. The father was working in the kitchen when there was a knock at the door. He went to open it, not realizing who might have come to see him. Julian stood on the doorstep. "Hi, John. Thought I'd come in and announced." She stood and looked at him. Julian, hi. He realized that the closet was in the hallway, and there was no way he could hide his daughter there now. There was no way to leave her in the room because the girl could walk in there. What to do? He didn't understand. "Yes, come in. Undress," he told her, and himself quickly went into the room. He saw that Elizabeth was sitting on the sofa. He grabbed her arm, opened the balcony door, and pushed her out there. "Daddy, what are you doing?" "I'm naked," she told him, and made big eyes. "Stay here quietly." He closed the balcony door, drew the curtains, and thought that when Julianne went to the kitchen or the bathroom, he would pick up the girl and take her to the pantry. "Oh, you smell good." The girl came into the room. "I'm cooking dinner," John smiled, realizing that it would not only play into the hands of Juliana, but she would see what a wonderful man he was. "How about we set up in the room?" she asked him. "Okay," he said reluctantly. The father thought that if they sat down in the kitchen, he could go to the room and open the door for his daughter. The table was set, plates, glasses, everything was there. He brought what he had prepared. Julian just ate and praised. "I'll probably stay at your place," she turned to him. "Of course I don't mind." John couldn't tell her to get out of here. Right now, he wasn't even thinking about how his daughter felt out there, and Elizabeth stood on the balcony. It was a good thing she had her slippers on and wasn't barefoot now. She was wearing pajamas and nothing else. She took her cell phone out of her pocket and dialed her mom's number again. "Hello," she heard in the receiver. "Hello, hello, Mommy, hello," she chatted. "Who is it?" A woman's voice asked her. "Mommy, it's me, Elizabeth, your daughter." She tried to speak quietly so that no one in the room would hear. If that were the case, there was no telling what her father would do to her then. "Elizabeth?" Catherine asked her again. "Yes, Elizabeth, Mommy. Please take me away from here. I cannot do this anymore," said the girl in a loud whisper. "Elizaveta, where are you? What happened?" excited Catherine. "Daddy brought Auntie, and I kicked out of the house," cried little girl into the phone, baring her teeth from the cold. "What? How could he? And where is Naomi?" asked her mother. "Grandmother is gone. She died a long time ago," said the girl. "How died? From what died? And the nanny?" "Tried to find some options, Catherine." "The nanny is also gone. He fired her," sobbed the daughter. "Elizabeth, do not worry. You still live there too," clarified the mother. "No, we moved. My father sold the house, and now we live in the city in an apartment." Elizabeth froze so that she could not speak clearly. "Do you know the address?" Catherine asked her one last question. "Yes," Elizabeth dictated her location. "Will you be able to stay there? Because the road will take time." Catherine asked. "Mommy, I'll try. I'm waiting for you. Come soon," cried the girl. "Wait," dropped the call mother. Elizabeth believed her. She looked around. Here on the balcony there was practically nothing. She saw a small carpet rolled up, unrolled it and put it on her shoulders, so it was warmer anyway. "You understand, daughter. Life is such a complicated thing that sometimes it turns out that you forget about the closest people," Catherine cried, ran to the bathroom. She realized that if she had started to do something earlier, it would not have happened now. After that, something had to be done, because Elizabeth could not just live with them. Catherine had been stripped of her maternal rights, and really, if John wanted to, she would be in big trouble. Mickey got on John's case. He brought everything from his past, and there was a lot of it. And at some point, there was a trial to get Catherine reinstated as a mother. Mickey had done everything he could to get Catherine back as a mother, and now she had a daughter. But Mickey didn't stop there. He was so angry that John and his mother had caused so much trouble for his wife that he decided to punish him. Let him feel how painful it was for a young girl to be left alone on the street. He found a lot of dirt, and when he presented it to John, He almost crawled on his knees. Now Catherine was standing over him, and he was looking up at her. "Forgive me, please," he said to his ex-girlfriend. "I have nothing to forgive you for. I just want you to understand how to deal with those who have no power in their hands," she was telling him. "Catherine, I understand," he bowed his head to her. "I don't want you to ever interfere in our lives. Elizabeth is with me now, and I hope you won't see her again," she told him, turned around, and walked away. Time passed, but Mickey could not accept Elizabeth in his house. She was a stranger to him. Even though she was Catherine's daughter, whom he loved so much, she was still not his child, and Mickey had nothing to do with her. "I bought 4 tickets to the circus, and he came home in the evening." "Why 4? Catherine didn't understand. "Who's not going?" "Oh, I forgot about Elizabeth again," Mickey confessed honestly. "Well, Mickey, how could you?" Catherine felt bad for her daughter. They often went to Selena's house, where Elizabeth liked to stay. Strangely enough, the grandmother had grown to love her granddaughter. She came to her at the age at which she had left her daughter, once in an orphanage. Today, the family went to the circus. Mickey didn't go with them. And tonight, he talked to his wife. "Catherine, your mother is so good to Elizabeth, and the girl loves her. Perhaps she could stay with her." He suggested it. "How? Do you realize that would be a betrayal?" Catherine asked him. "I understand, but at the same time I realize that I do not want to return home, because here she is. I cannot communicate with you in front of her. I want to give love to my sons. But at the same time I see how Elizabeth looks when I hug and talk to them, and it is not very pleasant," he said to his wife. Okay, she agreed with him, and the next weekend, when Catherine took the children to their grandmother's house, they were all sitting around the table talking. She raised her eyes to Elizaveta. "Elizabeth, do you like it here?" she asked her daughter. "Well, yes," replied the girl. "You understand, we have with Mickey all the time disputes. He cannot accept you," did not hide from her Catherine the truth. "So what?" The girl looked at her mother, but she already understood everything. "Today you will stay with grandmother," her mother told her. "Forever?" Catherine specified. "I don't know if Mickey accepts you. Then maybe we'll take you back someday. But don't worry, I'll come every weekend. We'll get you into school, dear. You'll be fine." Catherine hugged her. They were both sobbing. "Okay, Mommy, I don't mind. I'm fine at Grandma's too," she agreed with her. Of course, inside, Elizaveta was very hurt, but she realized that here, at Grandma's, she will still be better than at her father's once was. And Selena was only happy about this turn of events. They began to live together. At first, Catherine, as promised, every weekend came to her daughter and her mother, but then it began to happen less and less often. And now she could come on New Year's Eve or May holidays, sometimes in the summer. But Elizaveta had gotten so used to her grandmother that she no longer needed anyone but her. Now that her grandmother's health was bad, Elizaveta was very worried about her native person. The girl had caught up on everything she had missed at school. She studied, and very well. Her grandmother was only happy for her. Then the girl found a good company. They went to discos, gathered in the afternoon in the club to rehearse something, because they had an asset. Elizabeth didn't even want to move to the city. Now she had everything here. She planned to become a teacher after the 11th grade, and then work in the local school. But a person decides, and fate can give him a surprise. What's that noise? Elizabeth got up in the morning. There was no need to go to school, because the summer vacation began. She finished the 10th grade. They're here. They want to make a road. Grandma looked out the window. "Well, why are you frowning? It's good. We'll have a good road. We'll be able to drive smoothly, and not on these potholes," Elizabeth told her. She stood up and looked out of the window too. There were several guys in orange jackets working on the lot, which was far from their house. It was like a woodpecker had settled in her head, Selena said, and left to take a pill. Elizabeth, who was happy for her village, was very happy that they were now making a road here. It would be possible to study for a driver's license and not regret the car anymore. Because when her mother and Mickey came over, and they had an expensive car, and Mickey kept saying that he felt sorry for the kind of money he was spending on repairs because he was driving on a road like this. A few days went by and Elizabeth decided to ask the workers when it would be finished and in general how long they planned to work here. She walked over. There were 2 of them, one older, one younger. Elizabeth addressed both of them at once. "Hello, when do you plan to finish?" she asked. "We think that everything will be done by September." The younger guy raised his head. "That's good. We'll go to school on new asphalt," shook her head. Yes, he replied. Elizaveta asked a couple of questions why, who appointed it, because before there was no such thing. So many years stood the village without a road. And the young man explained everything to her. And in the evening, when they gathered at the club, she saw him there. Hi, he came up to her. Hi, said hello already today, she laughed back. I'm Archie, he held out his hand to her. And I'm Elizabeth. She simply answered him and still smiled. What do you have here, a disco? He looked at the doors of the club. Yes, the girl saw that he was interested. Disco is good, smiled the young man. Shall we go? She called him. Let's go, he said back. They entered the hall. It was dark, and only they looked who was there, as a slow song played. Elizabeth, I want to ask you out, Archie said to her. Okay, I don't mind, the girl replied. All this time she was smiling. They went out into the hall, started dancing after the slow one. There were fast dances, but they didn't want to stay here anymore. Let's go for a walk. You can show me the village, the young man said to her. They walked out of the club. The girl began to tell about the village, about its foundation, how the Mo was here. Archie listened. He was really interested. Then, in the evening, he walked her home. In the morning, she saw him working again. Then, in the evening, he came to her house. Hi, shall we go for a walk today? He said to her. Sure now. She went inside to change her clothes and then go with her boyfriend. Where are you going? Her grandmother asked her. I met with one of the workers. He called for a walk, did not hide anything from her granddaughter. Well, run, but don't come back too late, the woman told her. That's it, bye. I'm running. Elizaveta couldn't wait to go outside. Again today they walked until the evening. And then Archie, just like the previous day, walked her out. Say, will you go out with me? He looked at her. Of course, she replied and became embarrassed. It was the first such proposal. The girl had never even gone out with anyone before. The grandmother was worried that the girl was not yet of age and that this guy could seduce her, but at the same time she believed that her granddaughter was smart and would not do what her mother had done. Elizabeth and Archie walked and talked about everything. They were together for the rest of the summer, and then when the work was done, he had to leave. I so don't want to part with you, he hugged her. I don't want to break up with you either, she said honestly and looked into his eyes. Elizabeth knew that she had such a character. She quickly gets used to people. And now she realized that Archie would leave, and they might never meet again. It made her very sad. I will come, he told her. And I will wait, she answered him in a whisper. In September, the girl went to the 11th grade. Everything was fine. Twice a week on weekends, Archie, as promised, came to see her. They walked around the village, talked again, but now it was no longer that childish love, when they walked by the hand and just hugged. The boy was kissing his beloved. He told her how they would live together and what they would have later, when she graduated from school and went to study in the city. Oh, Archie, don't wish. Usually when you do that, it doesn't work out, she told him. You know, I'm such a man. If I wish for something, it will come true, he looked at her and could not believe that there were still girls like her in life. And Elizabeth, like her mother, believed that this young man will make her happy. After graduating from the 11th grade, she, as planned, went to enter the city. It had been a success. Archie told her that he was renting an apartment and they began to live together. Everything was fine in the couple's relationship. But one day Archie came home and told the girl that he needed to have a very serious talk with her. At that moment, Elizabeth looked at him and realized that either he was going to propose to her now, or it was the last day they were together. Talk? I'm listening. She was ready for anything. Elizabeth, everything you know about me is pretty much true. My name is really Archie. I really work for an organization that serves different villages, towns. We do roads, construction, and a few other functions. But what you don't know is that this organization belongs to me, he said, and watched her reaction. I don't get it. Elizabeth was very surprised to hear him say that. I started a small firm a few years ago, and then it just kind of took off. And now I have a few dozen employees, and I organize it all, he told her. So why did you work yourself when you did the road in our village? She wondered. Because that day several workers had poisoned themselves and couldn't go to work, and one man couldn't cope with all the work that needed to be done. So I went out to help him, and here you are. He was telling her what had happened that day. Archie, she looked around. Yes, I used to come to you in my car, leave it behind the village, and change into my work clothes and come to you. He continued his story. "Is this apartment yours too?" she asked him. "No, I really rent this apartment. In fact, I have a house outside the city, and if you agree to stay with me after all this, we can go there right now." He took her hand. "God, I never thought this would happen." She was at a loss. "Well, as you can see, it can," he answered her. Archie had actually meant to tell Elizabeth all this before, but he couldn't quite summon up the courage. He realized that the girl was decent and would stay with him even if he became poor and unemployed. That was what attracted him to her openness and truthfulness. They left the apartment, got into a completely different car, and drove out of town. The house was really big. Elizabeth immediately remembered how they lived with her father, grandmother, and nanny in almost the same one. She went inside and looked around. It can't be. She covered her face with her hands. Believing it can, he walked over, put his arms around her, kissed her. "We love it." She looked at him adoringly. "Will you be my wife?" He said in her ear. "Archie, I fell in love with you for nothing, for no riches, no money, and of course I agreed to marry you, no matter who you are, no matter who you are, no matter if you are a beggar, no matter if you are a laborer, no matter if you are a director." She embraced him. "Elizabeth, that's why I couldn't admit it to you for so long, so you wouldn't think anything bad." He spun her around, the place allowed it. In the evening she called her mother and told her all that had happened to her. Catherine was very happy for her daughter that everything had worked out so well. She came to her in the evening. They sat together on the couch. Her mother hugged her and cried. Said they were such bad parents who couldn't keep their daughter. But now she had found herself a wonderful life partner, and she was sure to do well. Elizabeth was crying too. She realized how hard it had been for her before. Now she told her mother that she would move her grandmother in with her and they would all live together. Archie was fine with that. Mickey had never been able to accept Elizabeth, so he never went to see her. But the mother began to visit her daughter almost every day now because they lived not far from each other. A couple months later, Archie and Elizabeth were married. Grandmother sat as the guest of honor at the wedding. Mother, Mickey, Steve, and Anthony were all there too. They were happy for the girl. Elizabeth, in a beautiful white dress, stood next to her beloved. She looked at him and he at her, and there was no one else she and he needed, just the two of them forever. "My beloved, I wish you only happiness." Her mother came up to her and hugged her. "Mommy, thank you for everything." A tear rolled down her cheek. "Forgive me for everything." Could not forgive herself, Catherine, all that happened during all the time she was arranging her life. "No, Mom, I don't blame you for anything." Her daughter looked at her. She understood the woman now, because she was in love herself. If the same thing had happened in her life now, there was no telling what she would have done. Grandmother cried. She realized that everything ended in peace. What if? I didn't want to think about it. Today they had fun and rejoiced for their daughter and granddaughter. "Mommy," Catherine sat down to Selena. "Do not say anything, apparently. God is still in the world." The woman smiled. She realized that her children had been given everything. Each of them had to go through a hard way before they became loved and happy. You know, and not so bad. Catherine watched how the young danced and rejoiced. "Do not think about it," quietly said the woman. The party was over. Everyone went home. Archie and Elizabeth were unspeakably happy. The very next day they left on a wedding trip. It was a wedding present from her husband. Do you know? Elizabeth looked at her beloved. What? He was ready to listen to her always and everywhere. Not everything was so easy for me to come to you. You know, how many difficulties I had to endure. As they say, through thorns to the stars. She pressed against his shoulder. Will you tell me? He knew this girl wasn't hiding anything from him. Yes, but sometime later, she smiled. I want us to have 3 children, Archie said, looking up at the sky. I'll try to fulfill your dream, she promised him. They lived, all was well. Archie continued to work. Elizabeth stayed at home. Catherine, as promised, was often with her daughter. Selena's anniversary was coming up. Mickey and Archie were making a surprise for the whole family. They'd rented an expensive restaurant and invited everyone. Grandma was shocked when she found out about it. They gathered, the whole family was here, and a few neighbors who came from the village. Dear Selena, Archie stood up with a toast. He wanted to thank her for meeting the most wonderful girl in the world. But he didn't manage to do it. The doors of the restaurant opened. A man who looked like a tramp stood on the threshold. Hello everyone, he raised his hand. All the guests stared at him, and no one could figure out who it was. Man, get out, this is not your holiday." Katerina came up to him. "Katya, didn't you recognize him?" He smirked. "John?" She looked at him with all her eyes. Elizabeth, who was sitting at the far table, trembled. For some reason she remembered living with him. And now that all her fears and sorrows were behind her, she was afraid of this man again. She looked down at the table where the various dishes stood and smirked. And before, she dreamed of at least a crust of bread. "Daughter, what, you won't even come out to your father?" He found the girl with his eyes. "Daddy." Elizabeth turned to her husband, looking for protection in his face. "So what's going on here?" Archie got up from his seat. "Can I ask you for some food and money?" John asked. "Oh, you're so mean." Catherine pulled away from him. She could not imagine that the major, who she once met at an abandoned construction site, will turn out to be like this. And it's all the fault of his mother and her money. She spoiled him. "What don't you like?" "You didn't say that before," the man said with a toothless mouth. "Here." Mickey walked over to him. He handed him some bills and also a roll of food. "Oh, he's a kind-hearted man," John grinned. "Go away." Catherine almost pushed him out the door. Elizabeth sat in her husband's arms the whole time. She remembered the day when she almost fainted on the balcony, and she did not want to communicate with this man. "Elizabeth," Mickey came up to her. "Let's go and talk." "All right," she stood up, not realizing what this man could be talking to her about. "Yes, I'm listening to you." They went outside. "I want to apologize to you for all these years." For some reason it came to him now. "I don't hold a grudge," she told him. They hugged, at which point Archie came up to them. "Son, take care of her. She's a nugget," the man said to his son-in-law. "I know that." The young man smiled. 6 months passed. Catherine came to her daughter. She was lying on the sofa on the first floor. "Honey, what's wrong with you?" asked her mother. "I do not know," Elizabeth said something. "And I know it seems that someone will soon become a grandmother." She looked at her mother, who came out of the kitchen. "Are you sure?" Elizabeth immediately forgot about her bad feeling. 100%, showed her mother her glass. The next day, when Elizabeth went to the clinic and checked, it turned out that she was really expecting a baby. "Beloved, I am so happy," hugged her husband. A few months later, at a routine ultrasound, they were told that they would have not one baby, but 2 at once. "Did we have twins in our family?" she asked her grandmother. "No," she shook her head. "So it's on Daddy's side." Elizabeth turned to her mother. "Everything is possible, but we will never know," she said.
Thank you for watching this video to the end. Subscribe to the channel. Like it, write comments if you like the story, and see you on the channel.